Oh, that's a terrible photo for me to freeze frame on. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's time for the rubber to hit the road. Yes, we are going to be choosing our practice market today. And that's perhaps the most important thing that I want to get right off the top here. And that is you're picking a practice market, not a market that's going to be successful, not a market that's going to be is going to be the one that's going to make you money. We're purely picking a market to practice on so we can move on next week to the next stage of the process. Because the stats tell me that the vast majority of you won't make it past today. That's just the reality. Only people who are truly serious about creating a business make it past today. And unfortunately, it's a minority. So I hope that's you, but I fully expect it not to be you, because people just find this process of picking a market too overwhelming. And so I'm pointing out to you that you're not actually choosing your forever market. You're not choosing the market that's going to make you all the money. You are choosing a market which is simply going to practice on, right? You're simply going to practice on it. And as I've been saying all week, I'll be really angry with you if you find a market that you become successful with and you make $10,000 a month eventually and you do really well. I'll be really pissed that you've done that, because all I wanted you to do was to pick a market to practice with. All right. So that's the first thing. Second thing that I want to mention today is two really important little facts. And I had to study literally thousands and thousands of pages of understanding the different theories related to this. You don't have to worry about this at all. I'm going to break it all down for you and just explain to you what took me years to figure out. Right. And that is the difference between deliberate and emerging strategy. Now, I know that sounds a bit intense and maybe a bit off-putting, but it's actually very, very, very simple. And that is that, and somebody won a Nobel Prize for this, by the way, that in order for you to be successful, you have to have a deliberate strategy. You have to have a deliberate process, deliberate action-based moving forward. But the thing that'll actually make you successful will actually emerge from that deliberate action. Indeed, it is rare. It is absolutely rare that it's actually the thing that you start off with. In fact, referring to the Bible, the most amazing book ever written, would you believe a book that is slightly useful? Would you believe it's a vanity project? Anyway, in here, in your first dollar, I have the Post-it note right here. And let me just, the Stanford Startup Survey. And a survey undertaken by Professor Amar Bid, I think it is, Biddy, maybe, documenting in his book Origin and Evolution of New Business, surveyed 3,500 successful startups and asked this simple question. Was the idea you started out with the idea that made you successful? 93% of the survey respondents said no. And I thought that was crazy. I thought that was ridiculous. And then I thought about every time I've been successful, full stop, in business. And it has never been the thing that I had planned to start out with, right? Magcast, I didn't start 30DC to do Magcast. That was something that happened through that process. It really is quite extraordinary when you have this deliberate and emerging strategy. The problem is, if you don't pick a market, if you don't pick that market, guess what happens, right? You literally will never ever find that emerging market that is the thing that becomes successful. So you have to have a deliberate strategy going forward, and you have to work at your market. And so much of what we've been doing here this week, and indeed with the drills, and as we continue on with new drills next week and move our business, our practice business forward, not our business, it's not our real business. Oh, no. This is just a practice business. This is one we're just practicing on. This will be a crucial part of it. And that's what I know, right? And I see it every time. It's the people who pick off a little bit every single day are the people that become successful with it. Okay. Now, there's one other issue that I haven't really addressed this week that's really, really important, and a big thing that has potentially put people off choosing a market. And that's, it's called a number of things. Imposter syndrome is one that I saw people describe at it when they looked at it. Expert syndrome is another way of putting it. And that is thinking that you have to be an expert in a market in order to create a business in that market. Okay. And nothing could be further from the truth. Now, it's awesome. In fact, in some ways, you would argue that the best experts in any market are not the most successful people in the market. The people who are good at marketing are the most successful people in any market. You can look at that in any market, and how cool is it that Apple passed $1 trillion, the first company ever to make $1 trillion. You talk about a company that has amazing products and amazing marketing. Quite extraordinary. So this is a big deal, right? This is a huge deal for when you're starting out with your business. You have a feel. It doesn't matter whether you're a barista or you're creating an online course. It doesn't matter. There's this thing in the back of your head which says, well, you have to be an expert in that. And hey, if your chosen business is brain surgery, bloody oath, I want you to be an expert, right? I don't want you to be, let's document my journey in brain surgery. Here's my first patient. Oops, sorry, died. We don't want to do that. Okay, we definitely don't want to do that. But the reality is, in most, if you think about the best weight loss products, the best marketing, the best courses, there's two types of businesses. There are expert businesses, that's fine, but the expert business has a negative, which is, and that's the syndrome of, that's fine for Ed. Okay, that's cool for Ed that he's good at this information marketing stuff because he's special, or, he was gifted in some way, or blah, 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 right? There's all of those sorts of things. But I think a journey business where you are documenting your journey as you go is absolutely as legit, and if not more legit and more approachable to your market than any other type of business. Okay, so that's point one. Point two is if there's a conversation between two people, and one person is asking the questions and the other person is answering the questions, who typically is the person in power in that conversation? The person who's asking the questions or the person who's answering the questions? Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a police interview, the principal's office, and in interviewing for an employee position, right? Typically, the person who's asking question has this real power position in the marketplace. And just by asking question, in fact, the most well-paid entertainers on the planet are the great interviewers like Oprah and Michael Parkinson and David Frost back in his day, right? They are the people who ask the questions are the people who control the conversation. So if you're on a journey and you're interviewing experts, you don't have to be an expert yourself. You just need to be able to interview the experts and ask the questions that the people in your market desperately want to hear answers for. You do that and you'll create an amazing business, right? You'll create a fabulous business. And the perception of it will be that after a while of you doing this, won't be overnight, but after 12 months, 2 years of doing this, you'll be perceived as an expert as well. And that's just how it works. Market leadership is a very simple formula, which is content times consistency, right? That is very much the key of it. Okay, so let's get down to business, okay? Because at the end of today, you will have picked a market that you are going to move forward with to practice with, okay? That's what we're doing today, a practice market. So how are we going to do that? The first thing that you are going to do is let's just look at what we did this week. First of all, we did brainstorming, and for many of you, a new type of brainstorming, which was way more effective than anything you've tried before, judging by a lot of the commentary. And we looked at getting a whole bunch of markets, and then we narrowed those down to 3. And the only criteria that we had for those 3 markets is it would be really fun to work in this market. And if you could wave a magic wand and you knew absolutely guaranteed it was going to be successful, what would that market be? Those were the 2 criteria, right? That and the only 2 criteria. Then we went and had a look at, okay, are people making money in these markets? And we looked at various places like ClickBank, Google, and Amazon to do that. Then we needed to figure out, okay, great. Okay, let's observe that. There was no right or wrong answers with that. There was no particular criteria involved there. Then we went to Facebook to look at the buzz. What are people talking about? Right? Are there lots of people talking about this particular topic? Or if there's a small amount of people, are they talking really, really enthusiastically about that? Because another thing that we haven't talked about is the law of small numbers when it comes to a business. You get 1,000 people paying you $100 over the course of a year, that's $100,000 a year business, right? So that's why every market is a market, Dale's law of markets. So we had a look at that. And then in our most recent effort, we then went and did the best for what, a really cool exercise, which I learned from Ryan Levesque and his ASK methodology, about to get an idea of what are the segments, what are the buckets, what are the types of people who are interested in this market. And then that leads us to today. So we've been doing a whole bunch of research with as little judgment as possible. And I've had to, have cross comments with some people who were trying to judge their markets too early based on, oh, this doesn't happen. Another big part of this week has been training you how to take a punch, right? In other words, when you're in business all the time, you're going to get negative results. And of course, it's not your fault. Everything that you've ever done has always been graded by not making mistakes. And you feel bad when you make a mistake or when you get something wrong or when a result doesn't go your way. It's just inbuilt, right? But unfortunately, when you're creating a business, that's a really bad thing to have happen. So this is very important. So next thing that we look at. So now we've got to go, okay, well, now we need to pick by the end of today, we need a market that you're going to pick. So the first thing that I want you to do is set a timer for 10 minutes and do a free writing session. Now, a reminder, the rules with a free writing session are you must use a timer, you must use pen and paper, and you must not stop writing, right? It's crucial that you don't stop writing. And what I want you to write about in this 10 minutes of free writing, your first 10 minutes, is just what are your feelings? Your brain has stored away subconsciously a whole bunch of information this week. This is what we now know with peak performance. We know that as long as you're interested in this subject, the brain stores everything that you've seen this week. All right. It's all there. You just have to draw it out, and you can't draw it out unless you are using pen and paper and working to a timer, right? This is all the science of this stuff. So what I want you to do is just get out on paper what you've absorbed. Is there, what of the 3 markets did you like the look of the most? What did you see in terms of making money, in terms of what they were talking about, in terms of market segmentation? 10 minutes of impressions of the 3 markets. Okay, so that's the first thing that you're going to do. Then I'm going to ask you, do you have a market? All right, so literally, do you have a market? Hopefully, the answer is yes. You've picked a market that you are quite happy to practice with for next week. All right. If that is a simple thing, then that would work. Nello's saying, Ed, I also use free talking, recording myself just talking out. Won't work. Sorry, mate. It uses a completely different part of the brain that we're talking about. You must use pen and paper. For this to work, you have to use pen and paper, right? You can't talk it out. And there's plenty of science to back that up. So you pick a market. Can you pick a market, right? Have you picked one that you'd like to go forward to practice with after that exercise? If the answer is yes, awesome, right? That's great. If the answer's no, then I want you to revisit the question we started off with originally. Which one of these three would be the most fun? Which one of these three would be the most fun? You narrowed it down to three. Now just look at it and go, okay, which one's the most fun? And then pick that one. Okay, notice I said fun, not the most profitable, because again, we're picking a market to practice. We're not picking a market to be successful in business in. Like I said, I'll be filthy if you do that. I just want you to pick a market that would be really, if, you do everything, if you insist on creating a successful market in this fun area, what about all those things? Because here's the thing, there is no market that ticks all the boxes, right? There is no successful market. There is no market that has all green lights. It's impossible, right? And this is what stopped so many of you from picking a market, because you believe, just like you were taught in school, that there is a correct answer. There is no correct answer here, right? So after, you might find that one of them, just based on your free writing, you're able to pick it. If you can't pick that, then just pick the most fun one. All right. That's the market to pick, right? Very simple. However, some of you may still not have been able to pick a market at this point. Then I need you to do something else. And I want you to do another 10-minute free writing session on why are you struggling to pick a market to practice. Listen to that carefully. Why are you struggling to pick a market to practice? It's not a market to be successful with. So why are you struggling so hard to just pick a market to practice with next week? That's all we're doing. It's like, as I wrote in Your First Dollar, it's like, do I have the tuna sushi or the salmon sushi today? All right. What is it that's causing you to just not do the simplest thing in the world, which is, if it was sausage making, Hello Kitty collectors, and vinyl record collection, right now, if I was to pick a market to practice with next week, I'd pick vinyl records. Why? It's the most fun, and I'm really interested in it just right at the moment. So that's what I'd pick. Done. Job done. Right? Because I don't expect it to, I'm picking a market to practice. That's all I'm doing. I'm not picking a market for the best thing. So if you can't pick that market, then you need to do a 10-minute free write on what's stopping you. Why can't you just pick a market to practice? What is going on? Because there's something deeper. There's an issue that we need to surface in that case, right? And then if you've been tracking along with the challenge, if at the end of that you still can't be picking with that, right? If you still can't pick with that, then you have to, are you actually serious about starting a business? It's okay if you're not. If you're just doing this for kicks and giggles, I suppose that's fine. I can think of a lot more fun things to be doing than building a business if you're not serious about it. But that's fine. But all we're saying is pick one to practice. And Aaron's actually got a good point. I've got three really fun markets that I'd really like. I might have to roll a dice or use the scientific Dale method, which is to write all three, screw up a piece of paper on each of them, and then throw them. And the one that goes the furthest is the market that you pick. That would be a good one. That would be a good way to break a tie. And there's actually a huge amount of science beyond that, and I started talking about that science at the very start of this video. So let's go over again, just so you're absolutely clear what you need to do for day 5. 10-minute free write on impressions of the 3 markets, taking into account all the research that you've done so far. Okay, 10 minutes free writing. Timer, don't stop, pen and paper. Must be pen and paper. At the end of that, say, can I pick a market? Hopefully the answer is yes. Can I pick a market? Because we're picking a market to practice with, not the one that's going to be successful. I'll be angry if you choose the market that's going to be successful. Just pick a market that you want to practice with for next week. That's all we're doing. If you can't at that point, right? If you can't pick a market at that point, then I want you to revisit the original question. Which of these is the most fun? Like, if I could wave a magic wand and I knew for certain that in 12 months' time, this would be earning me $10,000 a month, wouldn't it be a kick to do that, helping people get involved in vinyl records or Hello Kitty collecting or sausage making, right? Either of those 3 would tickle my fancy completely. So any of those things would be great. So that is what we want to do at that point. Now, at that point, though, if you still can't pick a market, then there's 2 things. If you've just got 3 fun things and you can't do it, like Aaron was saying, I've got 3 fun markets and I just really have to roll the dice. That's a really good methodology. And there's a huge amount of science to back up the fact that even if you randomly pick one, that will, because you're making a deliberate decision, even if you're randomly picking one, which will allow the emerging market to appear. Thank you, Linda. Subway on me. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thanks very much. So that's it. But if you're still at that point and you can't pick a market to practice with, there's an underlying issue here, and we need to draw that out. And free writing is one of the things that's fabulous for drawing out these underlying issues, because then I want you to have a deep and honest free writing session with yourself. Why can't I even pick a market to practice? It's like you're hungry, you like sushi, you're at the sushi bar, you've got tuna, you've got salmon. What's this underlying issue that's stopping you from picking a market to practice, right? Because we need to bring that to the surface, and you need to deal with it. Right? You need to realize whether that's the case, because if after that 10-minute exercise, you still can't bring yourself to pick a market to practice, you just got to ask yourself, are you serious about this? It's totally cool. Maybe it's not. It's a hobby, weird hobby, but maybe it's a hobby, right? And that's cool. That's fine. I don't mind. No skin off my nose either way. But if you can't even pick a market to practice for next week, then that's, I can't help you, right? That's the reality of the situation. I promised tough love in this challenge because I'm sick of coddling people along. Come on, you can do it, right? And that's the thing. Nello asked, my problem is the product. Have I mentioned anything about product? Have I asked anything about product? I've said nothing about product, and I don't anticipate saying anything about product for some weeks, right? All I'm talking about is a market that you want to operate in, right? To practice, not a real business. We don't want to do a real business. We're just going to practice. All right. So that's it for this week. All right. That is it for this week. Have great fun. Don't forget, Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, USA time, we will have our challenge update. We'll be doing our drills for the week, what's going on next week in terms of the challenge. All of those things will be put out. I'll make sure I send out messages and put it on the group. If you haven't joined the challenge Facebook group, you should, because I tell you what, the commentary and the insights and everything that's happening in the challenge Facebook group is pure gold. Just go to Facebook and type in all new challenge. And make sure you have that all sorted out. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for joining me this week. Good luck. And, by the way, the final part is I just want you, any impressions from doing this exercise, I would love to get that feedback under the appropriate post in the group. And don't forget, also, please make sure you like the video, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell, as the YouTubers say. Although I'm very angry at the moment because they killed Rowie in Escape the Night, and I'm pretty devastated about that. All right, with that, thank you very much, everybody. Speak to you Sunday evening. Good luck picking a market to practice with. I know you can do this. All right. Ciao for now.